Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast. I have the American Prodigy, Warren Marlowe, on the show. And he's
Hey,
a
David, how's it going, man? I
good man.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Good man. I'm excited. He's actually a professional wrestler, a fellow podcaster himself, and I'm just looking forward to learning about him and his journey and about life in general. So welcome, Warren.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on, man. This has definitely been well overdone. We've both been busy, so I'm glad we're finally able to get it going now.
Oh yeah, man. I'm excited to know more about you. So, can you tell me a little bit about what you do and your background?
All right. Basically, um, obviously, I got into professional wrestling ordeal. I got into wrestling. Actually, I started wrestling in the training school when I was at 23 or 24 years old. Um, Out here in Jacksonville, I was trained by Rock and Roll Chris Turner, by the proving grounds of CCW.
Uh,
And basically, it's a training school. Just, it's hard to find a training school sometimes that are like, it works well with your budget. And I wasn't trying to spend an arm and a leg to start wrestling school. So, and plus, in Jacksonville, there wasn't that many options to look at wrestling schools and stuff. So I found this one. It was pretty much too good to be true. It wasn't even super expensive either. And needless to say, you get to do the training school and you also considered on the roster within 6 months. It just depends on how much you progress and stuff like that. And it's just crazy. Like, I I did good with bumps, which is really shocking because everybody usually would tell you that first bump is like a very mind blowing thing.
oh yeah.
I didn't really get not nervous about the bumps. Like the bumps, I was doing completely fine. I was running the ropes, doing everything. I will say that though, out of all type of sports that I've done basketball, baseball, football, and now wrestling. Um, Running those ropes don't matter if you got a 6 pack, a 12 pack, or even if you're not even fully in shape. That's a whole different game for cardio. And I've seen Marines, I've seen basketball players, I've seen track stars running these ropes and get completely blown up because the biggest thing about wrestling is there's no pause button. So it's no take two. You literally are in there, you perform what you needed to do, and that's it. You might occasionally, if you mess up a spot, you might be able to find a way to throw it back in there, but it's not like, oh man, we missed. Get back up. Let's try it again. You can't do all that. Like you have to literally go with the flow, and that was one thing that was tough for me at first. And the one reason why I had to actually wear a mask, which is funny because everybody I talk to, they're like, usually when guys wear masks, that means that like they're not got a presentable face or something like that. And you've got a very presentable face. And everybody kept asking me, I was like, hey, why did you have to wear a mask? Why did you have to wear a mask? And I flat out told them it was because I kept smiling. And literally, when someone would beat me up, I'm sitting there smiling because, man, I've been watching wrestling since I was like 5 years old. And this was just for me to just want to try. Like literally, I wanted to try it out just to see what it was. And needless to say, I got so hooked on it. I literally couldn't live without it for the whole time I was in it. I was very passionate about the character I was. There was ideas when we first came up with that idea of the character. I thought with my look and everything, everybody always praised how my look was, my physique and everything. I always thought I could have been like a Randy Orton type character, but I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'8", and weight wise, I'm maybe a good solid 180 when I first started, and they looked at me. I was like, we can't do the Randy Orton ordeal, but how do you think about doing a masked character? And I told him flat out, I was like, look, I ain't no lucha libre. I can't. I'm not even good on doing heights and all that stuff. And there's a good story with that one as well because when he first told me, he was like, hey, you ain't got to worry about doing all that. Like you could just literally be an old school wrestler and whatever. And needless to say, every time I was progressing up, he kind of started luring in, hey, start looking at doing a top rope crossbody and stuff like that. I didn't even figure it out. Like how people talk about Vince McMahon doing like the Jedi mind tricks. Like merely you're like dead set, hey, I ain't doing this, and he gets you to do it. That's kind of like how it was for me, because it was like literally it was like, man, I ain't getting on no top rope. And it was to say, like, not even a month or two later, we actually did it in a match where I'm jumping off the top. And it was just like, oh my goodness. Like I wasn't even thinking like, hold up, I'm afraid of heights. Like, why am I up here? And it was just like literally every single time I wanted to elevate it. And I do give a lot of props to Chris Turner on that standpoint, because my character was like a superhero. My character was literally something that I wanted to bring that superhero vibe. Like if you saw me, I'm kind of like American Prodigy, but I'm not 100 turned up. Basically, when I'm American Prodigy, I'm fearless. I'm I'm a I have the never give up attitude. Like I've always been that way. I'm always that guy. And sometimes at 30, still now it kicks me in my behind. Like, hey, that I can't crap. I still refuse to hear that mess. I still refuse to hear it. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, and it's like, hold up, man, this ain't moving like it used to. But it's like literally, oh man, when I first started it out, I wanted my character to be like Superman and I'm Clark Kent. And needless to say, for the whole 6 years I've done it, I've achieved so much more than I could ever have thought. Even if I didn't make WWE, or at the time AEW was just talked about, it was not even presented out yet that AEW was going to be there. There was a rumor. Um, People were hearing rumors like, oh, Jericho's helping out, found this, and da 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 da. And there was nothing set in stone when I was there. And it's just crazy. Like, even though I didn't make all these big time things, like how everybody's like, this was their goals and aspirations, that's how I felt. Like I said, I tried it out just to try it out. And needless to say, every match that I kept improving on, I loved it more. And when I would watch the WWE programs, the Impact stuff, and all that, I'm like, I really can do this. Like, especially when I was booked on shows when I'm with guys that I've seen on TV, and they look at me like, hey, you got a good look. Like, hey, you could really think about doing this. Like, maybe you need to slow down a little bit on working with the crowd and stuff. Like, my biggest problem when I first started was I was begging for the crowd to cheer for me. And with the typical character like I had, the USA thing, you obviously wanting to get the USA chance. That's what the booker was really expecting. Like, hey, get this USA chant going rampant. Like usually I'd be either match 1 or match 4 or the main event. Like those were the three different topics that three different numbers like on a card that I would pretty much be on. And if I was match number 1, I had to get the crowd up and going. I had the crowd literally rised up. Sometimes it depends on who I was with. If I was with one of my main nemesis, less fortunate, I don't think a lot of guys could follow up on the matches that me and him had. And it kind of pissed some people off because literally the matches that me and less fortunate will have, I literally sit here and tell anybody all this time, like that was my Joker in wrestling was him. We tore it down every single night that we were wrestling. Good Lord. My first year, we wrestled at least 20 times. Literally, no matter what area it was, we literally would go the same style every time. We were very stiff. Les, he likes to joke with it. He was like, it's called the love taps, what we called it. But every single night, regardless of 6 people in the building, when in a small town in Abbeville, Georgia, to 20, 30, and even up to almost 700 people, like literally we tore it down. And man, a lot of people would be upset because like, man, we can't have these on match 1. And that's literally the reason why we got took off match 1 a lot, because they were like, hey, we can't follow this. We cannot follow this at all. And people would push us to go to match 4. We never got the main event. That's one part I wish we actually would have gotten to get, was me and him do a main event, because I felt like we definitely could have done something with it. Um, but when I really figured out that I belonged in a company is when I won my first title, and it was called the alternative title. It was basically a title brought in that was not the super heavyweights. It was actually like middle junior weight, heavyweight, like junior heavyweights.
Like the U.S. title.
And we brought that element to that belt. And the funny thing is, the first year when we finally got this title talked about and we promoted it nonstop, this one thing I hold very, very dear to me for like a wrestling achievement is we made a secondary title, basically the main title, for like a solid 6 months. And that's how long I had that title. I had it for 6 months. We made that thing presented out like I was the guy. This was my belt. This is the belt to fight for and stuff like that. It was technically like a television title. I always defended it every single show, every show. And the thing about the alternative title was literally it's not just a one-on-one singles match. It was either a title on the pole match, a ladder match, you do a winner takes all tag team match turn one. So basically, you and this guy would be the tag matches, and you go and gauntlet these guys, and basically, whoever's the last tag team fights one on one for the title at the end. Like it was a very difficult scenario in that one, but you had so many different type of matches, the secondary special matches. I learned a lot being a champion. I realized like what's the real pressure of being a champion for an independent company or just itself, because they're expecting you to keep the ship moving, and you are really one of their main platform guys that they're presenting when they're doing these shows. And that's one reason why I stuck so loyal with them for a long time, was because one, they're in Jacksonville. They were in my area. I got to wrestle places that I got to play in basketball when I was in high school and stuff like that. So I was really close to the hometown area. But the traveling too, man, that junk really was a whole different game, because my goodness, you go wrestle, drive 3 or 4 hours, maybe even more.
Now you gotta
Barely, like, good Lord.
you gotta think that with the indies too. Aside from traveling, some independent promotions have wrestlers breaking down the ring and putting the ring together and putting
Yep.
all the equipment back in and back on.
That's one good thing about CCW too, because CCW really treated everyone the same. It wasn't like you got a special treatment. Like even when I was a champion, I would always be there at time, set up the ring, um, help promote it while which was cool, because I mean, you don't see me because I got a mask on in matches, so I could go all over the building and stuff. Because usually wrestlers, you had to like tiptoe through areas because you didn't want marks looking at you. You didn't want the fans to find you and stuff like that. That was the best thing about my character. The only problem I would have that is if we were in my hometown, Yulee, Florida, and then obviously everybody know who the heck I was and where I was and stuff like that. But other than that, I could literally walk off free, no problem. Sometimes I even done a couple of matches and then went into the audience just to watch certain matches just in a fan's visual. Um,
That's
it
awesome.
was pretty cool. That's one thing I do loved about being a masked character, was just like I felt fearless. I felt, you know how like Stone Cold talked about when he put that vest on and that
Yeah,
glass shatters and stuff like that. I felt that when I put that mask on. When I put the gloves on. Um, the thought of American Prodigy was basically, I was a big fan of Power Rangers. I was a very big fan of Power Rangers, and obviously AJ Styles brought it up, brought the gloves stuck together.
yeah. I could see that influence in there. A little bit of
Yeah,
AJ in there.
yeah, but here's the thing: AJ wasn't on WWE or main TV platforms yet, so I was sitting there thinking, you know what, I could do that, and it was like, because like everybody looks at my character and be like, oh man, you must have really watched The Patriot. Obviously, all the USA gimmicks is one typical one. It's the Patriot, and you bring a flag out, and it's just the typical one. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna put it on my gloves, I mean, I'm a big fan of Power Rangers. And the funny thing is, when I told the company that made my mask, I told them, I said, I want my eyes covered. I want a mixture of a Power Ranger and Spider-Man, because I was like, I just love that look. And they gave me, per se, everybody likes to call it, the American Deadpool look. And
Yeah. That's what
and
I
the
saw.
funny
Like,
thing about that is, when I debuted, right before I debuted, the announcement of Deadpool the movie came out.
oh
And
boy, I can
yeah,
imagine. Oh man.
so in October, I'm getting Deadpool chants, the USA talk, and then everybody's like, "Man, you look so cool! Like, I hope Marvel don't sue you." And then literally right after that moment, I'm like, "Oh man!" So I
Oh,
literally called the people that made my mask, and I was like, "So we need to look into this and see where I need to get this license." I'm not gonna say how much it was. It was definitely a good chunk of change to get the license to that, to be my character, my name, and I still hold it. I still have it. And the funny thing is, I can't get sued. I can't get sued from
good.
anyone on it because it's licensed to me. It
Yeah.
is labeled as the American Prodigy mask. And that's why when people call me the American Deadpool, I'm like, that's American Prodigy. Like, I paid out of
You
my
paid
own
ahead.
wallet
Yeah.
to make that license. So it is American Prodigy.
Ever I mean, did you ever think in your career that you would I guess if they give you the option of turning heel, would you have done it?
I've been back and forth on it. I love playing the good guy. Because it was very old school. It wasn't like how wrestling on WWE and stuff like that is now, where everyone cheers the bad guy. Like, it was literally character driven. That's one reason why I loved wrestling for Continental Championship Wrestling, was because it was strictly old school booking, old school matches. The matches, sometimes they all look the same in ways, but it was old school driven. It was based off your character. And that's one thing I wish wrestling would just go back to, is literally character driven wrestling. I feel like the longevity would be a more thing, the recycledness. Anybody could do a move. And this is one thing and when I'm on commission talk, shout out to my boys, Shizlinsky and Dre on Wheels from the 1130 podcast. We're commission talks, and we do a lively episode every Wednesday talking about pro wrestling. And this actually gets me in trouble sometimes, man, because like how we said, I've wrestled for 6 years. The one reason why I've only wrestled for 6 years is because all of my move sets, I was really wanting the crowd invested in me. I wanted the crowd to pop for me. I wanted to be that loudest chant you got. So I did a lot of stuff to get that chant. And when I watch AEW, I watch WWE, and I watch New Japan and all these guys, like, wrestling itself is amazing. But here's the thing, anybody can do the move. A pop is temporary, but your body, that's
Oh
gonna be the
yeah.
issue. And literally, man, when I watched all these matches, like, this might get people mad at me, but I'm not a big fan of the Young Bucks at all. I don't like much of their matches at all. I think we've actually talked about it before. I think it was the All Out, where they wrestled the Lucha Brothers. I
I
really
remember that.
believe that was one of the worst matches I've seen in so long, because all that they'd done, it was great acrobatic and all that. It made no sense. Like, literally, you put in all these finishers, you're doing everything in 15 minutes, and you're still going additional 30 for the whole match, and it meant nothing. Like, you did all these super kicks, it meant nothing. Like, I remember the one spot they were doing basically a pass the leader super kick match, where they would sit there and stand up, when it looked like they literally were just looking down, like, all right, I'm waiting on you, I'm waiting on you. Like, sell that a little bit more, make it look, if anything, wobble around a little bit, kind of sell this, like, make it presentable. And I feel like that's one reason why fans are really sick of what products we're getting thrown at us, because it's like, wrestling is great. The talent, the athleticism is top notch, amazing. I thought I could really fit in with that product if I was the old American Prodigy. But now it's just like, where's it going to come from? Where are we going to go from here now? Because it's like literally you've wrestled so many different styles. Like we talk about it all the time. Like, hey man, do you think the slow paced wrestling could ever come back? It can, but it's going to take a long time because where we have elevated it at now. And I wish 6 years, I wish 4 or 5 years ago now, man, like I kind of would have slowed it more down. Like when I got more popular, more risk taking moves were starting to take over. And it was just like new shows that I've never been booked on. Obviously, I want them to know who I am and really wanting to book me. So guess what? I'm looking at the crowd level. I'm like, yeah, it's about almost 400 to 500 people. All right, they'll get the crossbody tonight. And sometimes the guys would not catch me. And that
Oh
really
yeah.
started getting to the point where it's just like, all right, I ain't doing this much more. And then it's just like more of the stuff was getting wear and tear. And it's just like, uh. And one of the main things that really took a major toll too is because my fiance at the time, she was pregnant, and I just currently lost my grandfather, my
Oh
pop,
man, my
what I
condolences.
call my papa, and he was Warren Senior, and I'm the third, so he was very, very dear in my heart for the longest time, and I didn't know how to cope with it. Like I joke with it sometimes now. It's like literally the day after he died, I wrestled the next night,
Wow.
and because I'm just in that machine mode at that time, and I wasn't really thinking. That really started putting a burden on me. Um, I started second guessing the moves that I was doing in matches. The one match that it kind of kicks me in my butt sometimes. I was really proud of it, but I wasn't at the same time. Was we did a title on the pole match, and needless to say, I'm looking down, wondering what the heck am I doing. Like I'm usually into the match, I'm fully ready, I'm good to go, and I'm looking down like, why am I doing this? What what am I thinking? Like I'm on the top rope and I'm afraid of heights. Like I really don't like riding roller coasters because I'm not a fan of heights. Like these were things like I was second guessing. I'm like, man, my neck is hurting. Like my mom had neck issues and stuff like that. I've been dealing with that since I was 5. She was 16 years old, and she's been having these neck problems since she was 16 years old. And when she got pregnant, I think when she had me at 20, I think it was 19 or 20. And she's been back and forth. My dad was in the military, so he wasn't fully home all the time, just working. And I had to be a strong figure to my mom. Like I said, 5 years old, taking care of my mom with the neck
Wow.
problem. And it's been like that for such a long, long, long time. So, and literally when I got into wrestling, people really started saying like, hey man, you're going to make it big. You're going to do this. I did great achievements. Like I got rookie of the year. Um, one cool thing, won the alternative title twice. First guy to do that in a long time. Um, I did get selected for that virtual simulation wrestling game that's coming out next year.
Any updates on when it's coming out? Your character?
It's supposed to be out next November. I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be out next November. Also, if you go on their link on the Facebook thing, you could actually pre-order it, and it's on
Okay.
the Wish thing, and you just pre-order it. You don't pay anything right off the rip. You just have your name reserved for it, whatever. And I think if it's in talks still, you could actually pick the character that you want as the cover. And right now, everybody's been voting for David Ali and guys like that so far. So I mean, I'm just blessed that actually I
Yeah.
got nominated to do this thing because I looked at it. State of Florida, there wasn't that many names that they put on there, and they put me on there. So it's crazy because like I wasn't even wrestling for like 2 years when they were coming up with this game, and like they messaged me, talked to me about it, and like, hey, didn't know you wrestled, but we listen to your podcast regularly, and the rest was history. So
Uh,
I actually, the funny thing is, people usually have to message them to get on it, but I was messaging him about doing an episode with me. Like since I've been, I know I'm jumping off, but since I've been doing podcasting, I literally am like constantly like, hey man, you want to do a podcast with me, stuff like that. Like it's just in our mindsets because we've been doing it regularly now. So it's just like, hey, you think about considering about doing a podcast? And he's like, well, I'm kind of busy right now, but I just found out you actually wrestle and stuff like that. So he's like, I actually watched some of your matches and I was like, you know what? I like your style. I like what you've done to the business, stuff like that. And he's like, I love your mindset when you talk about wrestling. I mean, I only did it for 6 years. That might be long to people, but in a wrestling years, that's not long. And that's one thing I felt like sometimes I didn't feel like I have a place to say, but everybody's like, nah, you were good. Like you done your part. And everybody nonstop asks me all the time, you think AP coming back? You think this is gonna be a trial run for you? And I'm like, I don't know. And the funny thing is when I stopped wrestling, not even 5-6 months later, COVID hits. And
So you were
everybody's
fortunate.
not wrestling.
You were
Everybody's not wrestling. So I was like, maybe I picked a good time.
right. Yeah, definitely. Perfect timing for you to retire.
Yeah. And then the podcast idea came in because that's how I really learned wrestling was listening to all these podcasts. Like I would have guys, shout out to my boy Daniel Anderson, my boy Eric Moore, um, Solo Jones, Darian Drummond, just a good name a few. My boy Logan Stevens, Johnny Romano. Uh, it's just crazy, like how much you could learn. Because at first I didn't know what a podcast was. I really thought it was just somebody that's reading a book, and found out it's literally very educational.
It
And they would
is.
tell me
It
like, "Hey
is.
man, if you really want to know the business, check out Brian Conrad, talk Jim Cornette, uh, Brian Kelly, Chris Jericho has a podcast." And that's one reason why I really started getting really into podcasting was because Jericho wasn't just talking about wrestling. He was talking to bands, movies, actors, actresses, comedians, stuff
But
like
but
he was really interested in because when he first started podcasting, he didn't really even like wrestling. He didn't even like talking about wrestling, but he knew he had to do it because that's what people knew of him, of being a
exactly.
wrestler. And it really intrigued me because, like, with COVID hit, TV's not playing anything new. It's just like, man, like, this really just locked down. This is really happening. We're on nothing. And the thing that really struck me the most when we did lockdown is the gyms closed. And that's like, to me, like, literally, like, that's my sanctuary. Like, no, why? No. And then literally I got on to doing a podcast and I did one episode, literally woke up one morning, just hit record, saw what it could do, didn't think it was going to be 30 minutes, and it became an hour. And it was just talking about me, about my interest, about what elevated me to do this podcast and everything like that. And it was over 100 plays in not even a day. And I was like, well, gotta do more now.
Yeah, that was me. We got into. I spent years dabbling into it because I had a lot of friends tell me, "Hey, you got to share your story, share your journey," and this was years like after before like COVID, after I retired from sports from due to injuries. So I was like, I
Mhm.
need something to do besides just inspiring, other people. I gotta
Yeah,
take a platform and not only just inspire people
it
myself, but
spreads a message, that's
you
for
know
sure.
to spread let people spread their message,
Yeah.
their
And
journeys
that's
too.
one thing. When I first started doing this podcast, was like literally my mindset was to get the guys that I was in the ring with and stuff like that, for fans to know, hey, they're still here. This was their job. Like, support them. Go on their Pro Wrestling Tees accounts. Go on to whatever they're doing to sell their merch. Like, they need help. I know everybody needed help, but like this was their job and stuff. That was my mind goal. Was like, I want to give back. Like, I did. I'm not wrestling anymore, but my brothers and stuff that I've watched, one of them just had a kid on the way, and was terrified because he hasn't worked a regular job in like 7 years because he's been just wrestling, and wrestling was his income and stuff. Like, he was doing great doing that, but when COVID hit, he was panicking because he had a daughter on the way, and it was just like, oh man, like just a lot more came in. And then when I started doing these podcasts, I was just like, yeah, man, you know what, man? Wrestling only is two wrestling channels right now, WWE and AEW. And I'm listening to all these wrestling podcasts. I'm like, it's literally the same stuff. Like, we can't change it up because it's only two wrestling networks that are happening right now. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna change it up. I did an episode with two seniors, basically living their senior year at home on lockdown because there's nothing going on. So these seniors, I mean, it was sad. Like, literally, the seniors that had that year for lockdown, I feel so terribly bad for. Like, they would literally have to live with that the rest of their life. Like, hey, this was my senior year on a computer at home, nobody around me, no friends, nothing. Like, no prom. Like, it's really sad. And actually, our episode fought for them to actually have a graduation. Um, and they got it. So that was a big achievement to that. I don't say it's just from the podcast. I'm just saying, like, they fought to have a graduation, and everybody got to go and do it on their football field and stuff like that. So it was a Ridgeview High School. Shout out to them on that because they really had to fight for that graduation. Like, they were all talking about it was going to be on Zoom and stuff like that. Kids were not having it. They're like, no, no, which sucked because family members obviously could not be on the stadium in the stadium with them to watch them walk and stuff like that. They had to be far away. Some of them actually had to watch it on TV or on the camera or whatever. They just got a link to send it to them. It was just basically the kids getting to walk the stage, pick up their diploma, and the rest was history. So I'm glad they got to have that moment because, like I tell people all the time, is like, literally, you don't get that realization until after you walk that stage, you get that diploma, and then that's when life is about to hit you.
Yep.
And little old me at that time, man, I was looking at playing college basketball. I was looking at literally going to Florida Atlantic University, walking on, and starting my life doing that. Majoring in business, got a passion for fitness, and really thought I was going to do like personal training ordeal. Got my personal training certification, done it for a little bit, and it was just like, I'm not liking what I have to do to keep that going, because it's like I was encouraging people to have to be lazy. I was encouraging people to be like, hey, you can go on your own time. You can go on your own time. Like, it was kind of like losing my mentality of how I am. And it was making me judge my character and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know what? I was getting burned out with it. People did not like the philosophies I had with it. My first session, I literally would not let them touch weights, and it pissed them all off.
Gotta start somewhere, right?
Oh my Lord, man. I got stories for days about some of the clients I've had. But like I said, I was doing college basketball, found out I was gonna be a dad, came home to be that person, to be the father to my child, because like I said, my dad was in the military. So I didn't really have a father figure at that time fully there with me 24/7. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be there for my son. And sad sucked, man. I walked on FAU, one of the hardest tryouts I've ever done, and I made the team.
Wow.
And it sucked when I had to literally tell him, like, hey, I can't go. I can't keep doing it. And the coach was upset at first, but he knew the reason, and he was like, you know what? You'll be all right. I could tell from the heart and stuff like that, you're gonna be fine. Shout out to coach on that, because that meant a lot to me. That actually, because I was so nervous to go on there, because I really built a relationship with him because he saw the hard work I was putting in it, and I literally always gave my all in everything I'd done. And it killed me when I was really depressed when I had to leave playing college ball, because I worked so damn hard to get on that team, and I felt like it was taken from me, and it was a tough pill to swallow. But when I had my son born, it was just like
Hey,
it all erased. Like, it
if
literally
you
was
think
just,
about it, you got one blessing, and then you had another.
yep. I usually say, man, one setback is always a great comeback. And like I tell people now, like I've done so much in my life, and it's like I never really took a step back to go, you know what, that was pretty freaking awesome. And because I've always been that guy's like literally got to constantly stay busy, constantly do something, constantly get to the highest level of something I'm doing. So if I'm doing it, I'm focused completely on that to get that elevated up. And I look back, I'm like, you know what, man, I was a high school basketball player that really I the high school we had, we switched like 4 coaches the whole time I was in that high school. Um, Basketball was a top priority program the first year I was there because I was coached by a guy that literally coached us in middle school area and stuff like that. Then when he went up to the high school, we were still a team. Like, man, we had monsters on that. Shout out to my old squad, man. I miss that team, man. But it was like we have straight monsters on that team for a middle school squad, and then we go up to the high school and just take over the high school. Like, I mean, our first year, all at the first year, because this was only the second year of Yulee High School that was actually open, and they literally told us freshmen could not play on varsity. So we literally had monsters playing on JV. So
Oh man.
literally, it was like, oh my gosh, like some of the JV teams would look at us like, man, this ain't even
Like,
fair. Like,
we're about to
absolutely
go. We're
not.
about to go down real bad.
Exactly. And then when we all got our reality check when we played our rivalry, Fernandina Beach. That was our first game. All the JV players got to go up to varsity. And the funny thing is, I don't think a lot of people could say this, man. The JV took over the varsity team. Like literally all 10 of our JV guys that were like studs, we went straight over to varsity and just like took over whatever position they had, gone. Like completely. And the funny thing is, like, man, everybody's excited. Like, all right, yeah, yeah. Like our JV team wasn't used to losing, so we go up to varsity, and they're already like 2 wins. I think the final record was 2-8, and we were playing Fernandina, and they were undefeated right now. And it was a home game. Very excited. If anybody knows, like in the Yulee and Fernandina area, Nassau County, that is a very big rivalry. That's like a Florida and Georgia rivalry, and we're all best friends. It's literally we're fighting for bragging rights for Saturday. And needless to say, we got that bragging right taken from us. We took our first loss as a high school football team program from that. We got dragged. It was like 55 to like 0.
Oh man.
It was rough. And we were like getting that reality check, like, all right, now we got to perform better. And at the end of the season, we won 2 games. I think we only had like 4 games left when we got called up, and we won 2 of those, and we took dear proud of that. And then basketball season hit, man. I was so pumped and ready for it because I was actually able to jump. I was getting a nice little vert now. I could almost touch rim, so I'm sitting there thinking like, hey man, this is gonna be a good year for me. And I had a good freshman year and I had a good sophomore year, and then like my junior year, I got too cocky in ways because we had a new coach. Thought, hey, he'll be okay, but he's gonna know that this is our program. Didn't go that way. We had a grudge between me and him. Cost me my junior year, cut me, and then
Man.
literally my senior year, I just fought tooth and nail to keep it going, keep my name at least mentioned in the basketball
Keep it relevant,
community.
man. Keep it relevant.
And it was like, oh my gosh. So it was like, the stuff that I had to go through in high school and stuff, like my middle school year, we like to use Jordan got cut his ninth grade year, but made varsity this 10th grade year. Um, I got cut my 6th grade year in middle school, and I literally was heartbroken on it. And needless to say, my 7th grade year, I was the first one picked. My 8th grade year, I was still picked. My 9th grade year, I was picked. My 10th grade year, I was picked. My my 11th grade year, I still say that I really just think the coach had something out for me because literally, I know for a fact, performance wise, I definitely was not one of the ones that should have got cut. But in my mind, like I told everyone, I was like, this would be the last time I'm cut. And in my senior year, like I said, I fought tooth and nail. We had another new coach. We went through 4 freaking coaches my
Wow.
my high school year. So literally, you're not getting any progression at all because you're just going through coach after coach after coach. It's just recycled so many times. But the look back at it, man, is like, all those times I'm in my backyard shooting until the light goes off and stuff like that, man, until it's completely, I can't see the ball. I did some pretty good achievements with it. Like I got a brotherhood out of it. Shout out to all the guys that I played basketball with, man. Love y'all. Y'all are still a whole dear piece to me completely. Um, it was it's a damn good look back, and I'm like, you know what, I done something with it. Like it might have been taken in a way I thought it was taken away from me, but man, I always wanted to be a role model for kids, and why not me just be a dad? And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because he changed me. Shout out to my son Matthew, with him being special needs, borderline, with scoliosis. He was on the
Wow.
autism spectrum at 12 months. He was diagnosed with NF1. Basically, at 12 months old, he had more than one birthmark. He actually had 12 birthmarks. He was the youngest to ever be able to discover that because usually they say it's like 3 to 4 birthmarks. He had 12 at 12 months old. Um, yeah, like literally, he had scoliosis. I mean, my son's had eye surgeries. Um, Matthew has a back problem, which we hopefully in the near future is not going to be like where he's tensed up like this and his back is like slumped over. Hopefully, he'll never have to have a back brace. Um,
Uh,
kid literally is relentless. Like I tell people, like my son is me times 10. Like my son is so strong. He's a happy kid, literally a happy kid. And that's one thing I can literally hold dear proud to, and my daughter as well. My daughter is 3 years old now, and she keeps me moving. That's the best way to put it.
speaking about your son, how did you feel when you first found out about his diagnosis? Like, did you feel like a mix of emotions? Did you feel like you were scared? You were nervous?
I didn't want to believe it. Um, when I say I didn't want to believe it, I always felt like you had a choice to get to a certain scenario. Like when I was a personal trainer, like you have a choice. Either you want to be in shape or you want to be in fat or you want to be fat. Like there's no in between ordeal. Like it's your choice to like, hey, do I really need to stay on this couch and eat chips? Or maybe I need to go out and walk for a little bit, get my blood flowing a little bit. Like, I mean, I felt like there was a choice. I felt like we just needed to work with him. I felt like it needed to more focused on, what? My son wasn't speaking. My son wasn't walking. My son didn't fully walk until he was like 6 years old, even granted from the situation that with his mom and me at the time. Um, his speech was really bad. He couldn't talk. I mean, it was amazing when he would actually just be able to babble to us at 3 because it was just like, it was crazy. Like when he's going through speech therapy and ladies sounding everything out, and he's just looking at her like, I don't
What?
understand you. I don't understand you.
Yeah, yeah.
And we found out we found it like, the reason why we found out he had the spectrum of autism is when I started noticing stuff with him. Like there was some stuff that he would completely focus on, and then there was stuff that he was just like, you're not going to talk to him. You're not going to let him. He's not going to look at it. He's not going to care to acknowledge it or whatever. And one thing that I could tell that he loved so much was fans, and he still is like this. And he would just look up and smile, like he already knew what was going on. He couldn't abbreviate what was going on, but he could just smile. He actually said "fan" his first word, and that's crazy to me because like out of all the words that he said, he looked at me and goes "fan," and I was blown away by it. I was like, he
I
couldn't
could.
say nothing else. He said "dad, dad" and stuff like that, but he could never say anything else. And it was just like "fan," and that just changed it up a little bit for me. And then when we started noticing like his focus standpoint, when he gets excited, he starts kicking his feet up and down. Literally just kick his feet up and down. He'll do that for a good solid 2 minutes. And his hands are up like this, and he's just kicking, and he's smiling like he's so excited. He still does it somewhat to this day, being 9. And I took him into a specialist, and they looked at him, and we did a lot of tests, whatever. And it told me, I was like, he's on a very high percentage of autistic. And they told me what his interests were, what he's not going to focus on. I tell people now, if you ever have to teach my son, just know you're speaking gibberish when you're speaking of math. He ain't gonna care to know. He is not gonna want to know. He is not gonna really want to care to listen to any of it. If you have a fan, it'll work. Shout out to those guys that made the fidget spinners. That made life so much easier for me. It was definitely tough because he's getting all this special attention, and I'm not used to it. Like, I'm not used to babying, stuff like that. I'm not used to like realizing I have to speak so slow, stuff like that. Like, you really have to learn patience. And like I said, at the time, me and his mom, we were separating. Really quick because not only these ordeals, it's just because it was just like there was so much pressure. And needless to say, the high school sweetheart phases, they phase out real quick after that reality hits.
They do.
I mean, regardless out of everything that's happened with that situation, my son was the best thing that happened for me. It changed me. It made me become a better person in visual for anything. Like, literally, if anybody knew me before I had my son, I may not have been the most liked guy. Everybody used to say I was a comedian in ways, but I felt like I didn't have a real good personality to be around people. And Matthew made it to where I was just a happy person. And how I got into wrestling was from personal issues from it. And my son loved it. Oh my gosh, my son loved it. He was a big fan of John Cena. Completely a huge fan of John Cena. Every single thing of John Cena, the song, everything. Like, he would just lit up. And that was one thing I was really proud of, is like, you know what? I got to be like that John Cena for Matthew. And that was really one of the coolest achievements for me. And I can always live with that. And like I tell people all the time, I'm like, hey man, do you ever think about coming back? I'm like, if I do, I do. If not, I'm okay with that as well. And that was the first time I actually been able to say, you know what? I'm okay that I left this sport because I felt like I left it at a good standpoint. And for me to excite kids, fans, whatever they want to do, they can listen to me on a podcast now on Fridays. There you go, a quick little plug. I'm buzzing with Marlowe on Fridays. Like, man, just talking and really helping people cope. Like, my main focus is like, I want people to give a different outlook on things. Like how, like we just said about special needs and stuff, it is very tough to deal with.
It is.
It's very tough to actually hear about it. We are now about to be in Autism Awareness Month pretty soon. My main goal when I was still wrestling at the time, I was doing a fundraiser for, it's called Prodigy Strong, and it was going to be an autism logo right on my gloves.
I was about to ask you about
with
that.
the autism puzzle right there. We're still getting that worked on and stuff like that. And what I was going to do was take it to my son, take it to a lot of kids like in hospitals and stuff that have autism, stuff like that, and just give back. And literally, man, it's just an awesome feeling, especially with this podcast now, because when I first started doing it, I rode the coattail of American Prodigy. I'm not going to lie. I really thought that was the only way people were going to want to listen to me, is like, hey, I was American Prodigy. This is me. This is my podcast I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And you saw it at first. Literally, I just had a cartoon logo of me because I had that made for merch ideas for my wrestling character. T-shirts, stickers, gloves, all that, man. So it kind of sucked on that time, but I was like, you know what? I can bring it back, do that. Now the new logo that I have, man, I'm very proud of it. It really just shows how of a stepping stone that I've done just in general now, because now I'm not just riding on the coattail of American Prodigy. I'm Warren Marlowe. And that's one thing it took me so long to do, was be Warren
Cool.
Marlowe. And
You're Warren Marlowe.
like
I like that. I like that.
literally is like when I was Matthew, when he's special needs and stuff like that, man, I felt like I wasn't that father, because it's like, man, like, how can I help him with this? Like, I've never had these problems. Like, I've never figured this out. Like, literally, I've always had that, you know what? I can't do it right now, but guess what? By 6, 7, or 8 months, or even if it takes me a year, I'll be able to do that. And with Matthew being special needs and stuff like that, and him having to have speech therapies, occupational therapy every week, he had to have 2 sessions a week. It was very nerve wracking in ways, because he actually got me to want to do personal training, because literally I was like, you know what? I want to teach him how to walk. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I was very proud of it. We actually taught him how to take his first steps at 3 years old. And he had to have knee braces and stuff like that for a good while. So when he was with me, he would have to go to the park, and I'd want him to walk across this thing, even though he would be assisted walking through a bar, holding bars and stuff like that to walk. But you could just see the face of him just lit
His
up.
light.
He was scared, but just happy. Like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And it's just like, those moments is like, you know what, man? That's
You're
what I
worth it,
live
man.
for. And now with the podcast and stuff like that, I'm blessed at how big it's get. I'm blessed on it, because I didn't expect much of it. And my main goal is to have a good chat with people, and also bring a different visual to stuff. I used this episode very good much for an example was I was talking to a girl named Stacy Simpson, and she had stage 4 cancer. She just started her own gymnastics foundation, um, and she was very big on pageantry. I don't know nothing of that. I don't have any experiences with that. So it's like, literally, I was like, I'm not looking forward to this. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I don't know if I'm going to make sense on this, whatever. And needless to say, it's one of my most favorite episodes, because she just had a huge, beautiful personality to her. First, starting out the episode, having little comedic little drops in there, like, it just made me laugh. And I was like, whoa, this is how she is. And she's got stage 4 cancer. Like, she should be miserable. Like,
But
I'm been
yeah,
beaten down or whatever. No, she had the
no.
most positive personality, happy. She's like, you know what? It's not gonna stop me. Like, she literally is going through chemo. Shout out to her on this. Going through chemo, teaching kids how to be gymnastics and stuff like that, doing ballerinas and all that stuff. And literally, she'll go outside, throw up, come back out, and still teach these kids. That just showed heart driven. And I was like, you know what? She just
Determination.
made me a better person in this episode. She made me look at ballets and pageantries a different visual. Because I was like, at the time, I'm like, man, this is just way too much for kids. But for grown-ups, I'm like, she's like 50 something years old, and she's over here doing this. Like, what's the point of it? And then when I heard her story, I'm like, you know what? Congratulations. Like, this was an awesome recording. When I got off of it, I didn't want to hit end, because it went from me dragging it into so stressed out to try to figure out what was going on, to one of my favorite episodes, because just being nice, the positivity of that, man, people don't realize, like, stuff happens.
It goes a long way.
It does. And one thing I've learned, and one thing I've hold so dear now, is I'm never going to give anybody a negative vibe, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's
Exactly.
been
You
going
don't.
in their life and stuff like that. And that's one thing I've learned doing the podcast too, is like, you learn how to you learn certain characteristics when you're recording, when you're interviewing, stuff like that. And I've stayed so strong to it, man. I don't pre-plan anything. I might start an episode where I go, hey, what's the main visuals you're trying to hit on? And literally, what are you wanting to present? And what do you not want to talk about? Those are literally the only things I ask them. And then we go straight into it. And they love it because they're like, I don't feel like a robot. Like I've had celebrities on there. I mean, the last episode I just did with Lucy Bandit, she's going to be an upcoming actress for a big role in a movie that this is her very first big role, and she's still in college, majoring in actors and being an actor and stuff like that, and she's getting this big role. And needless to say, it's just like getting to be in her shoes to talk about her mindset of getting ready for this role and stuff like that is just a beautiful thing. It's like, you know what? She might be one of the big things coming out on TV in the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah,
And
it's
guess whose first interview she did it with? Me. And it's like, man, like these are the things I live for now. These are the moments that I really hold dear to my heart.
Yeah, it's like with Greg Aaron and I. You know, when I interviewed him, we went straight into it. He talked about his story, about his mom struggling with alcoholism, how he got into professional wrestling, and how Johnny Gargano took a chance at him and said, "You know, I'll train you, but
Mm-hmm.
it won't be easy." And the Iron said, "You know, I don't want you to take it easy on me. I want you to dish out anything and everything." And I read up on Iron, and he said he went through some serious injuries in the middle of his starting out his career. He ended up in the hospital a couple of times with concussions. There were times where he probably wouldn't be able to make it in the wrestling business, and he had tryouts with Impact Wrestling. At one point, there was a rumor he was on this news channel that they asked him would he ever debut in the Rumble, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, he put out a word to McMahon. You know, I'd love to be in the Rumble, but you know, I feel like due to what happened to Zach Gowen, that kind of shut the door.
Yeah.
So he ended up just doing you know, indie shows, but he's become super successful as a professional wrestler and motivational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we keep in touch now and we're good buddies, and I'm hoping to see him when he gets in town. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to Zach Gowen too, man. He's still killing it on the indies right
Yeah.
now. And that's one thing I'm very proud of. I can say I'm one of the guys in that class of independent guys that literally at the time it was really hot. Wrestling itself independently right now it's back to a 1000. And that's one thing I'm very proud of is like the guys I've worked with and stuff like that. Shout out to my boy Alex Kane. He was in my very very last match. We did a gauntlet for the junior heavyweight, and I didn't get to wrestle him because I lost in the gauntlet to my boy
Oh
Logan
man.
Stevens, which he won the whole thing. And but man, it's just really cool to see what guys are really getting a push, getting a chance. And I mean, if COVID didn't happen, like I don't think a lot of these guys would have got to been on TV and get these moments that they can always live forever. Because like when I first started, like literally, man, if you ever been on WWE TV, Impact TV, stuff like that, hey, that's where your money's gonna start raising because now they know you're valuable. Fans know who you are. You've been on TV. Guess what? You're gonna get a good chunk of change when you get that first offer and that booking goes, hey, you want to get this? All right, what's my fee? And then they look at you, well, you went on WWE. Guess what? That's a nice little chunk change right there. Like obviously you get more of a head of a pay just from being on TV than most people. That's one reason why a lot of people like to be extras because that gives you the chance to be on something that you've
The
dreamed of for
exposure.
so long. It gives you
The
that mindset
exposure.
of paying your dues and stuff like that. And I feel like wrestling is amazing now because all these guys that I've wrestled, trained with, and stuff like that are getting that exposure. And it's a beautiful thing to that standpoint. But the slow, old school paced wrestling needs to come back because I don't know how much longer the fast paced wrestling can keep fans invested, especially in the U.S. areas, because we're not New Japan fans, and it'll get tiring quick.
Now, if the American Prodigy was still wrestling to this day, what promotion would he consider signing to?
But big promotion wise, I like NWA.
NWA? Okay. And who would you, if you had a couple dream matches, who would they be? Who would you want to face?
Oof. Um, One of my dream matches I would have loved to actually have worked is AJ Styles.
AJ
I
Styles.
really would have loved that one. I really think that could have been a really cool, fast pace, slow pace at the same time. Like AJ can work anybody, and that's one thing I wanted to hold dear to myself was I could work anybody in the ring, size, whatever. I could work them. Obviously, my favorite guy in the whole wide world. I would love to wrestle The Rock. Like literally, that would just be like that fan moment for me. Like, oh man, I got to wrestle The Rock. Like I wouldn't even care if it was just like what he did to Eric Rowan. Like I would been like, you know what? I'll sell that rock bottom like nobody else's business. Like that would have been a cool thing for me. And obviously, my main favorite one would have been it probably had to have been Chris Jericho.
Would you let him put you on the walls?
Oh yeah. Man, if you didn't watch any of my matches, I was stretched like a pretzel most of the times.
Yeah, man, I could tell. Like, you were just trying to make it through. You had a high pain tolerance.
I like to call myself I was the Rocky Balboa wrestler. I got the beating of a lifetime, but I found a way to win.
Yeah, and the best part of it is you didn't retire from wrestling. You retired as a champion, not for just for you, not for your fans, but for your son.
Yep. And my daughter and my wife. Yep. Like
Yeah.
literally that's one that's one reason why it also was a pushback moment for me too, is because it's like, I want to be there for my kids. Like I said, I'm not there with my son 24/7. He lives 8 hours away from me, so I get to have him like 3 or 4 times a year, um, due to school because schooling. So obviously he's gonna be with his mom longer than me because of school. But my daughter, like, I'm really getting to discover what it is to raise a 3-year-old full time, and it's been challenging. There's definitely been some topics on it, but it's like, and be a husband and just being home. Like when I first stopped, it felt weird being home more than 4 days, just because it was just like when I'm usually home, that means I'm at work, and it was not. I'm at work. I'm literally just on the couch, and it's like, why? Like, what am I doing? Like, this is weird. Whatever. And I just started
Yeah.
appreciating it, man. Like my daughter when she got to say "daddy," um, her first walk. Um, it's been a beautiful thing,
There's
and obviously this podcast too, man. Like
yeah, man.
I love it, absolutely love it.
Hey, man. It's the thing. The thing about podcasts is it brings everybody together in a way
Yeah,
that you don't get when you're like in public. You get to network with people you don't even get to know you would ever meet in your life.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
honestly,
I like. It's crazy. Like some of the guests that I've had is like literally it's just because I've been on a podcast, and this is one thing I want to tell people. If you ever did discover and you wanted to try to make if you wanted to have a podcast, you don't have to have all the technology of a Joe Rogan or something like that. You could literally start off with a phone, a laptop or whatever, just make it sound professional. You may not be Joe Rogan, but guess what? If you bring the energy and you bring in
yeah,
your realism to an episode, that's what invests into an audience. That's what the listeners look for. They don't want to find these cliche robotic celebrities. Like, man,
exactly.
like that's one reason why podcasts have gotten so popular is because when you I think the best example is when you watch TMZ. You see a celebrity and they act a different way. When they're on their podcast, guess what? The gloves are off and they're telling you how they feel that day. They're telling you exactly what happened, why they got to do what they got to do, what they really believe in that episode and stuff like that. And that's what really makes the audience so invested in podcasts. Like, I'm pretty sure 90% of celebrities right now are on a podcast right now.
Oh yeah,
90 at the minimum is 90%. Almost all the celebrities they have their own podcast or they're doing podcasts. And me just not planning stuff and stuff like that, man, people were like, man, we heard about your podcast. This such and such told me, and like they told me like they've really felt like they've known you for so long, just the way you've done, how you narrate your episodes, how with the questions you ask. They're not very offended. They're they're real. And that's one thing people got to realize, man. Drop the gimmick. Be real. And that's one thing
Be
I
yourself.
preach in my episodes a lot, is because, yeah, I am the American Prodigy. Do I wear the mask on my episodes? No. Might do it on a special occasion. We never know. We'll see. But I'm Warren. I'm real. I'm a father. I'm a husband. Um, Obviously, I was a professional wrestler for 6 years. I hold that proud. I've played sports all through my life. My main focus now, sporting wise, right now, has been playing competitive flag football, and it's my new my new basketball, my new wrestling passion type scenario. It actually helps me cope. Like, hey, I'm okay, and I can still be that 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 dog. Like I like to say, is like that guy that literally just wants to keep improving, keep going. And obviously, my podcast, like, it's crazy to see where it's gone since I started, because at first I just wanted to do audio. Everybody always asked me like, "Hey man, why didn't you think about doing video?" Then first of all, I was recording in my garage. Secondly, it was just like I didn't want to look at my face the whole time on a camera. But now it's like, you have to adapt. You have to change the game. And
Exactly.
when I started getting more views, and then on season 3, you're like, you know what? I'll do it. I'm gonna do a live episode, whatever. And I think you were like my second or third episode when I did on live on camera and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I was really like, you know what? We got something here. And the rest is history, man. I've been doing video and audio for the whole time, and it's like, why didn't I do this at the beginning? Because now it's like I got 20 video episodes, but it's like I got like almost 60 just straight audio. So it's like, what in the world?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? How things change. Like for myself, speaking about podcasts and to kind of encourage you guys, when it comes to podcasts, it's okay to at first doubt yourself and to say, this thing might not be working out. Like you don't know how many, I don't know how many countless times I had to restart over just because I didn't like the direction of where my podcast was going. So, like the first podcast I had, I started it during the pandemic, but then I realized I was just doing, not only just inviting people on the podcast, but I was doing product reviews, I was doing wrestling reviews, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not doing one niche, so I got to focus on one thing. Am I going to do advocacy? Am I going to do wrestling? Or am I going to do product reviews? So I said, why not focus on advocacy? So I took it upon myself, even as much as it pained me, to restart the podcast all over. And
Sometimes you need to refresh the batteries, man. That's one thing I
and trust
love.
me,
When
it
I took that
worked.
break,
It worked. It's working.
I took that 2 month break, man. That's what really hit me too, because like I was getting good play numbers. I was literally doing very well, and I didn't do video yet, so I was doing very well on the audio standpoint. But when I took that 2 month break off, man, audio wise, you weren't. A lot of people didn't know my content was coming back out, because they were like, "We haven't seen you. We haven't heard anything for like 2 months, man." Like that was one thing everybody's praising. Like, you're so consistent. Like, you're always bringing out new content every week. And literally that 2 month break, which I'm gonna take that again in April. That's gonna be like my really good thing, is like literally I'll take a 2 month break around summertime so I can spend it with my kids. Like I said, I get my son very rare sometimes, so it's like that summertime is literally strictly all him. I'll pre-record episodes to get prepared for season 4, stuff like that. But that's gonna be like my break time is literally from April all the way till July's done. Actually, not April. I'd say May till July, till the end of July, and then I'll pop back up in August. But yeah, man, like those breaks really do help, and it's kind of like a workout session. Like literally, I used to work out 7 days a week. Now I'm only working out 4 to 5. Those rest days are meaningful now. Like, I used to not like rest days. I used to always want to, I felt like I needed to feel sore all the time because it's like I felt like I was doing something. And I read on, I was like, nah, man, like, if I want to strengthen this neck, I got to ease up on it. I got to literally like just partial it in, like get myself back up and rolling. And it took me a while, man, especially my neck injury and stuff like that. It took me a while to build that sucker back up. I took 4 months of literally not doing anything, no lifting, nothing. It killed me. Oh my Lord, it killed me because I'm just so used to working out 7 days a week and it not going at all. Just kind of like getting my neck strengthened back and everything like that. It was like, oh, it was scary to me because it was, at first I felt like I was gonna have my broken neck because when I first did it, I couldn't do this for like a week, and that's really when I was like, I'm done. I can't do this no more. Um, and it kind of gave me a bad shadow in a ways too, which kind of still pains me in a way is I had to drop a title that I didn't lose because that neck ordeal, it really scared me. And like I said, from my past with my mom and stuff like that, I did not want that for me. And me being married, my daughter was being born, so it's like, what's more important? What's more important? And
Yeah, your
till
health
this
and your
day,
family.
I don't regret my decision.
Good. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, you have your health, your family, and your kids. And do your kids get along pretty well? Your daughter gets along with your son, and your son gets along
Oh
well with
my
your
gosh,
daughter?
she's his shadow. When he's here, you can't get her away from him. You can't. My son's like, he's 9 now, so he's like expecting Belle to be like very adapt to talk to and stuff, which I gotta remind him all the time, like, bro, you didn't even start talking until you're like 6 or 7. So you can't really sit here and tell her, hey, you gotta say a full sentence. I'm like, Matthew, it doesn't work like that. It takes a while. Just slow it down with her. He's like, she broke. I said, she ain't broke, son. She's just new, still learning stuff. And she doesn't really get to be around a lot of kids. So when he's here, it's amazing because like
That's
her
good.
face just lights up. And when she gets to see him on FaceTime, because that's usually the only time she really gets to see him is on a phone. She sees him, oh my Lord, even if it's just for a week, you can't get Belle away from him. And I usually don't let Belle sleep out of her bed, but when he's here, I'll have both of them in his room sleeping because Belle literally is not going anywhere. She literally feels like she can't go to sleep because she feels like her brother won't be there. So we're looking
Oh,
forward to it. Belle's very excited about it. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely, she really looks forward to when her brother gets here. Let's just put it that way. And I like how when you said the different types of podcasts and stuff like that, man, that's one reason why I got my podcast, and I also made the commission. And we're 3 podcasters turning one. You got one that was a pro wrestler to give that perspective of a pro wrestler, and then you got 2 wrestling podcasts that literally based off of fan base, the fan visualization. And the one thing I'll say I love about our podcast than most people is we talk the goods and the bads of it. Most wrestling podcasts now that I've seen, they talk about one particular brand, how bad that is, and how great the other is,
yeah, yeah,
and
I
there's
know.
nothing that anybody could ever do wrong in that brand. And we get shadow thrown on us when we sit there and say the good and the bad of both and all of them, because we talk about all of pro wrestling. And yeah, if anybody likes wrestling, check out Commission Talks. We go live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, or when we're on the 11:30 podcast, we go on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
And you can't sit here and compare today's wrestling to the 90s or 80s because
Not even
that
close.
you can't really say it
It's not
because
character wise
it's not
anymore.
it's not like it's not like WCW and WWF back in the day when they had the war. There's no invasion, there's no war. Of course, there's this
I
thing
think that's the
called
bad thing about it too, from how great that was back then to now, is because it's so hard to follow up on. Like how, like I was talking about when me and my
Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
like how we can follow up on that. Like still, WWE, a wrestling company itself is still trying to find their Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they're still trying to find a plateau guy like The Rock. That's why they bring those guys back so much, is because
Speaking about
it's
Austin,
literally.
how do you feel about them bringing it back? I feel like it's a health risk for Austin to come back, especially with the neck
It's gonna be
injuries,
safe.
the
It's gonna be
back
fine,
injuries.
man.
They're not gonna have him bump. I don't think
That
he's gonna bump.
pop is
No,
what's going to be the talk, man. I wish they would let it just happen. Don't even announce it. But I know for a fact they're doing it to get those ticket sales up, which it's in Dallas. So you knew Austin was going to have a role in it. So I'm looking forward to it. And of course, it's with Kevin Owens. Like Kevin Owens,
Kevin Owens is
I will
gold.
tell you this right. I
I love the
guarantee that's
guy.
probably one reason why Kevin Owens resigned back. Them telling him, hey, you get in a WrestleMania moment with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I guarantee you that he's like, you know what? That's my main event. I'm happy with that. Sign me up. Like that's one thing wrestlers. I feel like guys now, and I use CM Punk in reference as it as well. They're not appreciative of what it used to be for them. And I listened to so many podcasts, and I listened to a recent one that was with Randy, and Randy says, as good as this talent is, man, they feel like they're way better than what the old generation was. And they feel like they should not be second rate to anyone. Sometimes they forget where they come from. They forget the guys that paved the way for them. And guys like Goldberg and whatever, man. Goldberg was a character, man.
Yeah, he was.
For the longest time, man. When you thought WCW, you weren't thinking of Hulk Hogan. You weren't thinking of the NWO. You were thinking of Goldberg. Who is going to stop Goldberg? Who's Goldberg going to crush this week? Like literally, Sting. Like these character-driven guys are what made the product. When we sit here and talk about pro wrestling, this pro wrestling that, like Roman Reigns is a character. He's bringing back the character-driven of a major heel. Like Roman is literally. I tell you right now, the Roman Reigns now would have definitely went into the Attitude Era. But the Roman back then, the babyface Roman, wouldn't be holding a jock strap in the Attitude Era.
I know Owens
It's
would have fit
based off of
perfectly.
characters, man.
Owens would have fit perfectly in Attitude Era.
Yeah. Yeah. Cena, man. Cena was really the newer Hulk Hogan. And that plateau that he had, man, is one of the best bookings in WWE ever. People give him hell all the time about how he was booked or how his decisions were and stuff. It was based off of a character, man. It's based off of character driven. Like when we still talk about, I feel like wrestling fans are more bitter about stuff that happened in the past than now, is because they feel like they have their saying in everything now. They feel like they see everything backstory wise, which I hate sometimes with wrestling fans, is they feel like they know everything of the business. And I remind people on commission talks on my episodes or whatever, did you take a run in those ropes? Did you take a bump? Like, do you have the right to sit here and say, oh, that was a botch? Like, it's totally fine for you to watch this product and give your opinion, but you need to speak that opinion as a fan base, not you thinking you as a wrestler. Like when you use these wrestling terms, man, you're trying to like people presenting like, oh, he knows the business. Oh, she knows the business, stuff like that. No, man. Know your place, enjoy what you love, and just let it happen, man. Wrestling's on what? 6 times a week now?
Yeah,
If you
but
really think about it, six times a week.
you have Dynamite, you have Rampage, you have Raw, SmackDown, NXT,
Yeah, I mean, you have so much wrestling.
and
People
you have
knock the NXT brand. NXT is a character-driven developmental. It's what it was to begin with. It's just the talent is not the indie stars that everybody knew of. It's not the indie darlings that literally you knew from top notch from the independent circuit to go to NXT and elevate up. And I'll tell you right now, guys, literally, if that black and gold NXT wasn't what it was, Finn Balor wouldn't have been as popular as he was. Johnny Gargano wouldn't have been as popular as he was. Tommaso Ciampa wouldn't have been as popular as he was. Samoa Joe, Bobby
Aleister Black.
Roode. I
Aleister
mean,
Black, you know?
Aleister Black, Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, these guys needed what they got because it gave them a mentality of how to perform in front of a huge liver audience around a lot more cameras. Like, I think I've listened to a couple episodes by Johnny talking about on Twitch is the one thing he learned when he got to WWE is the camera angles. It matters because you have to face every single camera to keep that character looking strong. Keep that character, keep the fans knowing, hey, he knows what he's doing. Even though there's thousands of cameras on that in that stage, like you realizing, like, man, I gotta connect with each and every camera because the fans are watching you through that lens.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's a different element. Like when we talk about what style of wrestling, when you go to WWE, you wrestle in WWE style. And a lot of people on the indies and stuff like that have trouble wrestling in WWE style because it's more theatrics, more production. It's more entertainment than wrestling. Yes, we know that. People like to refresh that every week.
Rag on it every week.
Oh my lord! But you gotta think, man. Most of the main moments of WWE of wrestling itself are these gag moments. Literally, Stone Cold, a beer shower into Vince McMahon, The Rock and Shane McMahon. That's not a pro wrestling
Kurt Angle with the
standpoint.
milk shower, you know? Kurt Angle with the milk shower.
Kurt Angle doing the milk drenched. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I would have been so mad if someone sitting there flooding milk on me. You imagine having to smell like that the whole time?
Or the Spirit Squad, and then they got manure poured on them when the
Yeah,
ex
like these
McMahon
are the
segment.
moments that matter. This is what builds the generation more. This is what builds a character standpoint and makes wrestling get visuals that we're not used to. Like when we sit here and knock about Ronda Rousey and stuff like that, guess what? Now we're getting UFC fans watching WWE because they're watching Ronda Rousey. They're watching Brock Lesnar. Like people want to knock about Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's one of the best characters in wrestling.
Right now, as a face, he's doing the best. This is my
This
opinion.
is the best work
he's doing the best
done.
work of his career as a face.
And the thing is, Brock has always had a personality. This is Brock literally outside of wrestling right now. The cowboy gimmick and stuff like that. That is Brock Lesnar. That is Brock Lesnar. And people are like, man, I didn't know he could do it. Brock's done this the whole time. Brock will do whatever you ask him to do. But he's going to make sure it doesn't hurt his character. That's the thing, man. Brock will go down as one of the greatest of all time just because, you know what? The character that he brought. The guy that, first of all, when I was in the independent circuit, you wanted guys that literally fans would not want to mess with in a bar and stuff like that. Brock Lesnar is one of those guys.
Oh yeah.
You ain't gonna pick a fight with Brock Lesnar in a bar.
He'd knock you out.
He would beat the living tar out of somebody. I mean, for him to go to UFC, pummeling on guys on UFC just to do it. Like, I mean, going in the octagon, he even tells you, like, it was a different animal. He had gyrogyculitis and literally still almost won that fight.
Yeah. I mean, don't, like, I tell people, regardless of profession, don't knock on it because you don't know what they're going through.
Just watch what you like, man. That's the thing
I
I preach so much, man. I'm a WWE fan just because that's what started me watching wrestling, WWE. And it's like I use the metaphor a lot, man. It's like the Fast and the Furious series, man. You watch one, you're gonna want to continue watching them because you've already watched them this far. May not be great, which the last Fast and the Furious was not great at all.
No, it wasn't.
The
To be honest with you.
going to space ordeal, I think that was way too much. That's what really I got lost in when it came to that film. I felt like everything was rushed. But other than that, like, you're gonna watch it because you've already watched so many of them. Because you're just like, you know what's gonna be different? If you come in there and watch wrestling in a perspective of WWE, let's see what WWE screws up this week. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be enjoyable, because the only way you're going to say it's going to save you if Stone Cold comes out, if The Rock comes out, Undertaker comes out, John Cena makes an appearance. Like, those are the things that Vince sees. Vince sees it as a level standpoint. Oh, let's piss them off, piss them off, piss them off, piss them off. Because guess what? YouTube
Yeah.
plays over 1 million. Pro wrestling clicks over 1 million.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have to say a word. Guess what? He's already at over 1 million views, because look, you're going to want to do it just to knock them. When I tell people all the time, if you're going to say something bad about the product, don't post anything about it. Don't say nothing, because guess what? Vince is seeing that, oh, this is good. This is good. They like what I'm doing. Okay, let's piss them off even more. Like,
Yeah.
people don't realize that.
It's,
Like,
it's
oh,
all
man,
about ratings and
does
money.
this, he buries them in this. You're letting it happen because you're giving it a reaction.
Exactly. Hey man, so it's been a great episode. Now, if you were to leave with something something positive to people out there that are currently dealing with their own struggles, trying to find their niche or their way of becoming successful in their, I guess, in their profession or anything that they're doing, what would you tell them right now?
So if I ever got another tattoo on my back, it would be saying relentless. Because I learned so much when I talk about the stuff I've went through and stuff like that, from being a father of a child that literally is not with the mother of the child, stuff like that. What do you got to transpire with that, with having special needs, stuff that I've had to witness, stuff like that, wrestling, everything. Every setback equals even a better comeback. And that's one thing I live by every single day. I never look at a day where I'm like, what's going to go wrong? I'm looking at it as like, what can I do to make this better? And that's one thing people need to realize. Even the worst day can be a good day. And like I said, man, with wrestling, it sucked. American Prodigy was done. But guess what? I got to be a father. I got to be a husband. And something, I always wanted to be a role model. I always wanted to build the next future of the future of life. I can do that now. I have a 3-year-old. I have a 9-year-old that I can really teach how to treat people, how to be better, how to do things from right to wrong. I get to do that. So when we sit here and say, I wanted to be a role model, in my mind, I got that. Regardless if it's 2 people or thousands, I'm changing somebody's life. And that's one thing. If I had left this world today, I wouldn't want people to cry. I'd want people to smile, because I'm fine. Like, the life I've lived, I wouldn't change it, because the stuff I went through, it made me the character I am today. It built me to be the father that I am today, the husband I am today. And I wouldn't change a thing.
Hey man, kudos to you and what you've accomplished and the fact that you're still here today making a difference. Now that I was thinking about it, thinking about the American Prodigy, I just thought about an idea. Have you ever thought about opening up your own wrestling school? The American Prodigy Wrestling School. How does that sound? How would that sound if you were to open that?
That'd be a lot of work. It takes a lot to do that. That would be awesome. That'd be cool. I've even had people mention it before. If I did it, it would basically be for guys that need ready to drop the 9 to 5 and get like a business ordeal with it.
They're
I would
committed
love to do that idea. We've had that talk a couple times before I actually did the podcast. I actually thought about doing that. And yeah, never say never. That's one thing I've learned, man. You can
Never
never
say
say never.
never.
That's why when people ask me, hey, is there one more in you? Honestly, there could be one more run in me, but it's just I gotta want to do it, and
You
I'm
gotta
happy where
find,
I'm at right now.
yeah, you gotta find the right time and the right place, and not only that, but the right mindset to be able to
Yeah,
just.
you wrestling is a different animal, and everybody look at me, man. You look great. You look better than what you did when you were American Prodigy. I'm like, cause I'm not in the ring. Me going and run those ropes isn't good, man. I'll look like a guy that literally eats Twinkies all day just because I'm not used to it anymore. I'm not running the ropes like I regularly were doing in the past. So it's just like those bumps, it's gonna feel a little bit more different than what I'm used to.
Hey man, but the fact that you left the business on your own terms and the way that you wanted it to be is something that people should keep in mind. Is when there's something that there's a time and a place where your body or your mind tells you, you know what, it's time for a change. And it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to feel anxious. But at the end of that door, there's something better,
Yeah.
and you've proven that. Like you said, you left wrestling on your own terms. You became a father, you became a role model, and most importantly, you became a hero to your kids and to your wife
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and to those
and I
around
look
you.
back, man, it's an awesome thing, man. It's a really awesome thing. And like in school and stuff like that, they talk about you don't know your place until that reality hits and you find your way. I don't feel like I've fully been found my destination in ways just because I mean, we're still young. We're not
Yeah.
old and wrinkled yet. Like even when you're older, like you still have things that can challenge you to be better. And that's one thing with me is like there's always something there. And Buzzwell Marlowe has been an amazing success, amazing thing to do. I look forward to them every week. Um,
Where can we find your merch? Like to purchase your
oh yeah, man.
shirts,
Bonfire,
everything.
bro. Actually, I got my new tank top
Oh,
right
there we
here
go.
on
There we
right
go.
now. Um, been pushing for a tank tops for a while. Everybody's like, man, that's the first time you go to the gym and you don't have a Buzzwell Marlowe tank top. And like, I was like, I gotta get that done. So I got this one. You can go on the bonfire merch. I will send you the link so you can
Yeah.
put it in the link below. You put in Buzz 20, you get in 10% off, and you get put into a drawing for March. Like I said, Autism Awareness Month is coming up. I am doing an autism awareness draw. Um, not revealing what prize it's gonna be, but it's gonna be an awesome thing. Like all you have to do is purchase an item, screenshot it, send it to me that you bought this, you entered into a drawing. And I'm excited to actually reveal that daggum prize, man. I've been wanting to say it for a while, and that's why I gotta keep like
Keep it under wraps.
slowing it down a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely looking forward to that drawing. Also, guys, um, if you like how I talk about wrestling, check out Commission Talks on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. 3 podcaster into one. We are called the Commission. I know everybody likes to say it looks kind of like the Shield. That's kind of like the format we were
There you
going
go.
for. Like I said, we're talking about the goods and the bads of pro wrestling, everything as a whole. We talk about WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, NWA, MLW, which I'm very proud of MLW right now. They're doing
Yeah, they're doing phenomenal.
amazing work. Especially shout out to my boy Boom Mae Club, whatever he's got going on. Alex Kane, his personality has changed so much since he has gotten on that brand, and the kid's gonna be a millionaire. It's gonna be $1,000,000 pretty soon. And just all the guys that I've ever been able to wrestle with, train with, um, have sent me messages to watch their matches and give my perspective on. Shout out to all y'all, man, because y'all are really changing the game. Y'all are really still the future of wrestling itself. I don't feel like wrestling is ever gonna die down completely. I think the sport's only growing, and
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful thing that I could actually say I was a part of it. sucked that I left as I did, because obviously when I left, wrestling started revamping back up, and now it's always where you like, that one more sounds good, but it's just like, I like being where I'm at right now. So yeah,
Good,
but
man.
yeah, man, if you want to catch me, I may not be in the ring, but check me out, Buzzing with Marlowe, every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We go on the Real Buzzing with Marlowe Facebook page, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube Live. That's how you get my episodes, and then the audio version you get the following day. So yeah,
And also all those links will be hopefully in the description, so you guys can follow all his contacts and Warren. It's been a pleasure, and
absolutely, man.
it's been incredible to hear your story and the fact that you've overcome so much, not just in the professional wrestling industry, but as a father,
Yeah,
and as a
yeah, man.
podcaster. So it's
It
incredible, man.
sometimes make you level, like how we say you want to be a better person on camera and stuff like that. I've realized, man, you got to reveal it.
Yeah.
And I did not want to be a hypocrite. Like, I've went through a lot of struggles in my life. Um, but it makes you a character. It makes you a better person. It builds you up. Like I tell you, man, people don't have a tough skin nowadays because we're at the areas like pat the back. That sucks. What are you gonna do about it? Like, I'm at that point, like, okay, one's down, let me look at another option. And I mean, you just never can give up. And that's one thing. It's so cliche, but man, it's so meaning to me. I've never been a guy to say I quit. That word rarely will ever come out of my mouth. When I say I left wrestling, doesn't I will never say I quit wrestling, because it's just, I hate that word. When you say quit, that means it's, you failed it. So when I say I left it, that doesn't mean I'm a failure. That just means, I left on my own terms. It could be a in between. It could be a possibility of a continuation. You never know. But quit is, you're done. You failed at what you trying to do. And that's one thing I can just tell people. Never say quit. Never quit. If anything you do, man, put your effort into it. You can make it something out of it. It's just a matter of the time and effort that you put into it. And that's one thing I hope people could get from this episode and stuff like that, is just never quit. Like, everyone has a talent. It's based off of you to discover it.
Love that, man. I love that. Everyone has a talent, but it's up to you to discover it. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind every time I feel like I'm doubting myself. That's a good way to put it, man. I
Absolutely, man.
appreciate
I
that.
like your videos too, man. I love the workout stuff, man. You continuing to keep going, man. You don't stop. Like, I tell people, man, I'm 30 years old. I'm not. When you look at all these old wrestlers, like, bro, they can barely get out of bed. They can barely roll. Like, I'm fine. Like, people don't realize, like, I can do this now. I can move. I can run. I can be active with my kids. Like, that's one reason why I still go to the gym and stuff. Like, I I do it to my longevity with my kids. And I tell people all the time when they're like, man, what's your purpose of working out, man? It's just, I want to be here for long haul for my kids. And obviously you have a daughter, you gotta get the shoulders dropped on, and be like, hey, back up.
Exactly.
She's single and she ain't having nobody for at least until she's 30.
Yeah, gotta protect the kiddos, especially when you got a girl from those boys.
Man, you learn a life when you have a little girl, that's for sure.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and you'll be able to catch this show on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. I'll also post it on my other platforms. Like now, I just recently discovered Reddit.
I
You'll
got
be able
that
to,
too, yeah. I
yeah,
just figured out about those.
yeah, it definitely helps. Reddit, LinkedIn. I'll have that on there as well. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And I usually end it with, if I can do it, so can you. But since this episode was so meaningful and so encouraging and motivating, I'd like to say, if Warren and I can do it, so can you. So keep up the good work, and I'll see you guys next time.
Appreciate it.